Julian Assange could soon be extradited to the United States after being arrested this morning. He had been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for almost 7 years before being evicted. Dramatic video showing the bearded WikiLeaks founder shouting as he was being hauled away. The DOJ charging him with conspiracy to help former Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning hack into the Pentagon's computers to steal information. Assange's attorneys are vowing to fight the extradition and saying it's a crackdown on the free press.
This sets a dangerous precedent for all media organisations and journalists in Europe and elsewhere around the world. This precedent means that any journalist can be extradited for prosecution in the United States for having published truthful information about the United States.
Edward Snowden, the former security contractor who leaked classified information about America's surveillance program, is calling Assange's arrest, quote, a dark moment for press freedom. Other reaction also pouring in.
If you believe in national security, if you believe in the safety of the United States, he's a villain.
In my opinion, Julian Assange is a hero. He will probably be extradited here. We will see the indictment, and we'll probably have a show trial.
I do not regard him as a hero.
Listen, I think it's about time. Julian Assange has put American lives at risk.
I'm glad that the wheels of justice are finally turning when it comes to Mr. Assange. I've never been a fan. I think what he did was despicable and dangerous.
And President Trump was also asked about it earlier.
I know nothing about WikiLeaks. It's not my thing. And I know there is something having to do with Julian Assange. I've been seeing what's happened with Assange, and that will be a determination, I would imagine, mostly by the Attorney General.
Did you see it?
All right, well, we'll get to that in a second, but people's opinions, Greg, of Julian Assange have really changed over the years. At first, the Democrats loved him, and they hated him, and where do they stand now?
Well, here's the deal. I emailed Dana and our producer Megan this morning, was it about 9 a.m., and I said, I don't want to do this story because I can't even remember how I feel about Julian Assange. Because we were, when the five began, I guess this must have been five's been around 8 years.
2010, 2011, yeah.
I can't tell you how I feel about Assange, and I don't think most of America even remembers, because the last 3 to 4 years has been turned upside down. Every ideology, every side, every team sport has been somehow mixed up and changed. So I can't tell you how I feel, but I will find an argument in this. So people that are upset about this arrest are saying this is an attack on journalism, a dark day on journalism. If that is true, then you could never arrest anybody hacking into your computer or maybe even breaking into your apartment. Let's say my assistant goes into my computer and takes all of my emails, right? It doesn't matter if there's good stuff in there or bad stuff. She is stealing my property. Let's say if she ships that over to the Washington Post and they have a story about me running this amazing drug ring out of my office. Not true. But the point is, she has broken the law. Now, if you want to commit journalism and there's a risk of breaking the law, then fine, you got to pay the price. But if somebody is taking something that belongs to you, in this case, that's what the charge is breaking into a State Department computer and stealing. If somebody comes in and is taking my emails, that is theft. Can you call theft journalism? I don't think you can. There is no reporting in theft, right? It's only a story if they find something in your emails. But that's not journalism. That is hacking. So that's my theory.
That is a great theory.
Or maybe not.
One of many great theories from you, Greg. Dana, the Obama administration didn't charge Assange with what he's now being charged with. And people are saying, well, why was it not illegal then, but now it is?
No, I think it's because, a couple things. My opinion about Assange has never changed.
You hate him.
And it's not about tribalism. Like, I'm Team America. What he did, he's not even American. Like, how does he get First Amendment protections? Like, for journalism.
See, now I remember this. Now I remember the shows we did.
It was bad, right? I mean, there's some,
you were, yes.
But I was right.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, okay, so it is very interesting. So one of the things about the Obama administration is that they're stymied. One, there were actual intelligence harms that were done, diplomatic harms that resulted from this.
Huge.
Then you had the whole thing about Bradley Manning's transformation, now she's Chelsea Manning. There's all that. Obama pardons her at the end, or commutes her sentence.
Right.
At the end. And then these people take on these mythical, like they're heroes. Well, one's a hero, one's a heroine now, I guess. But the Obama administration couldn't figure out how to charge him without him being able to get journalistic protection.
Right.
What I think is pretty amazing, and the Trump administration should be like, look at us. We figured it out, because they were the ones, I don't know whether through additional investigation, maybe we'll find this out, but they were the ones to say, this is not a First Amendment claim. This is a national security threat. This was theft. And for the rest of these people, they want all of our information to be open and free to everybody, except for they howl about internet companies and privacy. It's bizarre.
It is bizarre. Speaking of bizarre, Juan, look great today after a big birthday night out, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, that was me.
No, it seems like the left, especially in the media, are trying to link President Trump with Julian Assange now, and they're pulling all these tapes, I guess, from the campaign when the president was saying, WikiLeaks, I can't wait to read what they said, and I guess that's the new collusion, perhaps? Is that it?
No, I think, he was encouraging them, and then today, when he was interviewed, he said, WikiLeaks? I know nothing about WikiLeaks. I mean, it's so obviously wrong-headed, and he's just trying to avoid any connection. But, let's leave that alone. I mean, that's politics.
Right.
But I'm very interested in this story because it's evident that the Ecuadorians threw him out, and they say he was not a good tenant, right?
But he was also threatening their government.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
To release more information about Ecuador.
Right. So I didn't want to get on it, but clearly the first step is that they had been granting him asylum by holding him in that embassy, and once he's out, then he's subject to possible extradition, and that's when. Now the U.S. charge is very careful. It doesn't get into the arguments that Greg and Dana have been going through about journalism, not journalism. It simply says you were a co-conspirator in terms of helping Chelsea Manning to hack into our Defense Department computers. That's clearly illegal. That's their strongest stand. And that's why I think he can be then extradited, and he's likely to lose that case, in my opinion. When you ask me, though, I mean, I got hurt by WikiLeaks because I lost my cell phone, and I was awakened in Las Vegas after it was hacked, and they had my cell phone. I mean, it just very unpleasant.
I got to use that excuse once, too.
But I got to say that I think there's a big
We were answering the phone on air. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, I remember you answering. People got a huge kick out of you answering my
You
phone.
it live on air?
Yes.
Yes,
So
but
fun.
afterwards, no, in fact, Dana, afterwards, people, were still calling the number before I got rid of it, and they'd say, can I talk to Greg? I said, wait a minute, what about me? What am I, chopped liver here? No, but I got to say, serious news organizations, you can be handed. You could walk in and say, hey, Juan, here's the Pentagon papers. And I'll say, well, let me see it. And but it's not me telling you, here's how you go get the Pentagon. Here's how to break the law.
Right, the allegation was he was trying to crack the passwords in order to infiltrate the State Department system. And amazing how he was able to stay in the embassy for 7 years. There must have been a lot of behind-the-scenes dealings between the Ecuadorians and the British and the U.S.
Well, no longer. And you guys, all of your feelings, your inclinations, they're totally correct. So legally, think of it as a brilliant strategy, frankly, that the U.S. DOJ has undergone at this point, because their burden of proof on this is so low. It's so clear. It's so simple. You are right. It has nothing to do with what was stolen or what was published or what was done. It's you broke into the house.
Right.
So there's no defense beyond that even needs to be addressed at this point. The UK-U.S. extradition treaty is such that right now, at this point, the next step after this whole jumpy and bail thing, which we know he might face up to a year in jail in the UK, is that the UK courts will review the charging document, and if there is the requisite specificity that goes to their level of acceptance, then they extradite him here. So, as we know, he also faces up to just simply 5 years in prison, and to me, that also is interesting. We kind of talked about this before the show, that the 7 years of his self-imposed exile and the wretched creature we saw being brought out of the embassy today, he was in a worse hell and worse prison, anticipating all of this and worrying about it and freaking out, then frankly what he's about to face.
But he was visited by Pamela Anderson.
Yeah.
But
Emily, what about the statute of limitations? Is there one?
If there is, then it's usually 5 years. However, because he was granted asylum by Ecuador, to me it tolls the statute of limitations. And there is no way that the U.S. underwent all of this in the grand jury proceedings last year without having them know that they can rely on that to toll it, which means to pause it. So I think the First Amendment arguments
on the left, people say that he's a hero because, it turned out that he revealed some information about the U.S. government, in fact, monitoring or surveilling American citizens, and we as Americans have a right to know, was the argument. But this is not about this. This is about a guy who was participating in what I think was an illegal breach of American security.
Well, also, a villain on the left for the Hillary Clinton and Podesta.
Well, yeah, and why did the New York Times and Washington Post use that illegal information?
Right.